Hi, my name is Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, LLC, and I'm your host this evening of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Michael Obadia, who is founder and director of the Authentic Learning Group in Bethel. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Susan.
It's so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Can you give us a brief overview on your background, how long you've been in the Danbury area, and how you came to this work?
Sure. My group is about 5 years old, but in the past I was a high school teacher in California and also ran a tutoring business there. Actually, I was a director of instruction and in the Palo Alto, California area. And I've also worked for Save the Children and designed technology centers and intranets for them and for the kids who were served by Save the Children. So I missed working directly with kids after having been a teacher and tutor, and so I decided to start up that business again, and it's been great.
So, wow, so you really have a varied background. I mean, you started out teaching, then went to Save the Children, then dabbled on the internet with technology.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe dabble isn't the right word, but it sounds like you've really worked in a lot of different facets.
There's a consistent thread, though, and the thread is just loving being with kids, and I love being an educator, and I've been blessed to have great teachers, and it's like their energy, I've carried the ball that they've given me, and so I really enjoy teaching. But when I was in California, the whole tech bubble happened, and there was a lot of excitement about what could be done using technology. So I left teaching and tutoring, hoping to find some way to bring together the technology that was available with good teaching. And I moved back to the East Coast and entered another graduate program and was working on exploring how mentoring and even tutoring can be done online. And as I was working on that, I found out that Save the Children was beginning a major effort to support tutoring in the U.S. You may have noticed a few years ago there were a lot of public service announcements about mentoring. And it was during that time that I pitched the idea of trying to do online mentoring, and they said, well, we can't do that right now, but we might need you to do this intranet project for our kids in underserved communities in the U.S. So that's what I did. So now I'm back to having my own tutoring business, and I'm so excited about finally, beginning this process of augmenting what I'm doing in the live tutoring with some online tutoring.
Okay, so tell us exactly what the Authentic Learning Group does.
I provide tutoring, for school-age kids.
Okay.
We do test prep, a lot of SAT, some ICs or SSAT, which is for students who are looking to enter a private school.
Okay.
And I've also done GREs for graduate students. So that's test prep is maybe a third of the business.
Okay.
And then general tutoring and to help kids with study skills and get psyched about learning, what I call academic mentoring. That's about another third. And then another really interesting and important piece is academic enrichment. A lot of parents are, every parent is trying to get the best education experience for their children. And some parents are attracted to the idea of going to a private school, but there's another little niche, and that's for students who stay in the local school district, but then enrich that experience with tutoring. And it's just great. It's almost like homeschooling for kids who already go to school.
Interesting. So what is the difference between academic mentoring and tutoring?
Tutoring I see as much more focused in its purpose. The purpose is the student is perhaps falling a bit behind in a particular class. So what we do is hone in on that particular class, and the goal is, get the grades up and then help the student see how he or she can perform well in that type of class without needing me.
Yeah.
Right? The goal.
Because I always thought tutoring was remedial, and that's kind of what you're saying, is where they need extra help.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But I see academic mentoring as something that goes a bit beyond that.
Okay.
To help the student learn how to learn and get excited about learning, not just about what's being offered in school. And this is a really important part of what we do, because one big issue is that students associate learning with what's going on in school only.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's like, oh, got to do my homework.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, sometimes I suggest to them that, that approach is like going to the cafeteria, the lunch cafeteria, as the sole source of food, right? But there are plenty of other things to pursue, and you're not limited to what is being offered at school. So if a student is interested in whatever, photography or Chinese history or rollerblading, any of those things can be a way to get excited about reading, get excited about learning how to learn, how to find resources, and become a little bit of an expert about that particular subject.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you said I try to get students excited about learning, and especially if they're having difficulty in a subject. How do you do that? You're saying you help them find something that they're interested in and work with them from there, or?
That's a big part of it. It's different, though, with each student. And the reason why I call my business Authentic Learning is because in order for there to be real motivation by the student, the learning has to be meaningful. It has the student needs to want to learn that.
Yeah.
And what I try to do with each student is listen to where they are, what they're interested in, whatever it may be. Just get off the subject of quizzes and homework and tests, because these poor kids are under the microscope so often. They're being evaluated and graded and scored. It can really take the joy out of learning.
I'm finding, because I've got a couple of kids, and I'm finding that it seems like the school system is just teaching to the tests, and I feel like somewhere with all the pressure to get into college and all this stuff, that our whole educational system has lost the love of learning. I mean, what would you say to that?
There's a danger when there's so much focus on assessments and metrics, of how to measure how well the class, the teacher, the school, all of them are doing. But I don't have such a pessimistic view. I really don't. I think there are a lot of great teachers out there, and they have a tremendous challenge to try to address what they're doing to each student in each classroom. And
so you don't see over-assessment happening, is what you're saying?
I do, but I wouldn't say that there's a lack of love of learning going on in our classrooms. I think so many teachers are in their classrooms because they love it, and even if a student finds not every teacher still has that burning love of teaching, I would say most students can find teachers here and there that can convey that. So, teachers are torn. They have to show that they're doing something, they're doing what they're doing effectively, and yet they still want to support and foster that absolute love of learning.
So you're saying they're kind of in a tough place. They're navigating the system, if you will.
And that's where students are too. They're in a tough place. They have to care about their grades, but there's probably an even more important job when you're in school, and that is, how can I be a great learner?
Yeah.
Because if you learn that, you're set.
Yeah, for life.
For life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know on your website, your mission statement reads, to help students achieve their unique potential. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by that specifically?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can't apply the same standards of success for every student. So it's important for a student to know what she or he wants. Is it to go to the very best college out there and maybe be an engineer or a college professor, or something that requires the very best academic or scholarship skills?
Yeah.
Or is it something else?
Yeah.
And it's not too early when you're in middle school or high school to explore those possibilities. And so basically what I'm saying is that each student needs to learn how to do his or her best.
Whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
With an eye towards what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
So to really do that well, that student needs to know himself or herself pretty well, and to think through even a little bit a sort of draft version of where their life might lead in the next steps. So if you can do that, and I think that's part of my task as a mentor, to help them think that through, because then when they do that, what they're doing in school is better aligned and seen as meaningful in relation to the larger goals.
Yes.
I think the biggest drag of them all is when every day in school is just homework.
Yeah.
And that you go through the motions in class, raising your hand, and then you go home and do more homework.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the cliche of the factory worker, like Fred Flintstone, punching in.
It's like a grind.
And doing something mechanical and rote, and then going home.
So it sounds like you work with a student in dialogue, kind of in the context of where are they headed, what do they want to do. So you help them make the connections. Well, why does this matter? Why should I care about this?
Exactly. And the happy thing is that it works, and that even students who have given up hope, who think, they roll their eyes and think the whole thing is just ridiculous. It's often a unique experience for them to have a teacher or a mentor listen to them for that long and get to know their story, so that they can discuss with somebody how to get back on track. So how do you typically find your students? I mean, how do they find you? Is it through the school system, or? It's word of mouth.
Word of mouth, okay.
I've tried advertising, and I may actually advertise on cable at some point, but I find that overwhelmingly it's just
word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
So if somebody's having some difficulty in school, they just hear about you. How do you work with the teachers in the classroom, or this is separate? You refer to it as almost like homeschooling.
That academic enrichment part of.
Oh, okay.
But if it is more of a tutoring situation, then absolutely I'll call teachers if the parents will permit me to do that.
Okay.
I've also attended parent parent-teacher conferences.
Oh, really?
As a tutor, trying to play my role in helping that student. So whatever it takes.
So
Yeah.
you can serve almost like as a facilitator, sort of connector, helping the student connect some of the dots between the teacher, the classroom, the parents.
That probably is overstating what I do
Okay.
in that role.
Okay.
It's more that what I learn from those meetings helps me do my part of it
Okay.
as I'm tutoring. And then also, it helps a lot when the parents and I are talking about the situation, that we can all be on the same page.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So what are the typical ages of students? You said school age. Is it mostly middle school and high school, or do you deal with any elementary school students?
mostly middle school and high school, but I've tutored kids from 4th grade through returning adult students. I've helped PhD students.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So,
interesting. So graduate
it was great.
students.
Yeah.
Well, you really run the
Yeah.
gamut.
I love it. I love it. Every person has, a unique story, and often the returning adult students are just so motivated and maybe a little bit afraid. And
So what might be a challenge or an issue that you would work with an adult student on?
Often these adults who are going back to college or are pursuing, I've had students pursue a doctorate, and they know they've been successful, and they know they're well educated, but there are holes in their education, whether it's grammar
Yeah,
or
yeah.
math, certain math, and just sort of putting on paper their opinions of things, and in that sort of term paper form.
Yes.
So once we go over some things and we review some rules of grammar, and they do great. They really do well.
So it sounds like your work is as much helping people understand the actual content as it is helping them to gain more confidence.
Sure. Yeah.
And in that process,
Yeah.
probably they gain more confidence.
Right. There are other professionals who do things similar to what I do, who call themselves, coaches, academic coaches. So
Yeah.
that's the idea.
So, like, who might be your competitor? Like, do you compete with, like, Sylvan Learning Systems? Do you offer similar services as they do, or is it a little bit different? I'm just thinking of Sylvan,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of private tutors, and then there are a number of different sort of franchised national businesses, and I'm sure a lot of good work gets done all over the place. And I don't think too much about competition. There's so many kids who need good
Yeah.
tutors.
Yeah.
So I know the kind of work that I do, and
Yeah. So what would you suggest to a parent who his child is struggling a little bit? Like, what should they look for in a tutoring service, let's say?
I think parents should look for an approach that isn't cookie cutter, and that whether it's a business or a franchise business or
Yeah.
a private tutor, that they're really ready to listen.
Yeah.
And it's often valuable to take in and review any previous report cards and assessments and evaluations. But I still say it's important to just listen. Sometimes, I have a student come to me, and there's a ream of documentation, and what I choose to do is just put it aside for the first couple of sessions,
Yeah.
so that I can really try to get to know the student
Yes.
without that in my head.
Yeah, so you don't wanna be biased.
I don't want to be biased.
Yeah.
And I find often that there's a, really energetic, curious, high potential learner there, and there may be other issues that make that more difficult, but I want that student to have, the best sense of his or her potential,
Yeah.
and
So
not to work with all the labels sometimes. that can
Yes.
and parents don't want that either.
Yeah. So for parents to look for a resource where the individual or the organization is really present
Exactly.
and going to tailor the tutoring specific to that child's
Right.
needs.
And then maybe some demonstration of a track record of success. Not just, if you're going to a storefront, that company has a track record of success, but
The individuals.
individual who'll be
Yeah.
working with your child.
Well, that's a really good point. How do you know when you're successful with a student? Like, what are some of your metrics, if you will?
When students don't need me anymore.
So you try to work yourself out of a job, is what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So where they're excelling to whatever their goals are,
Right.
and
It's pretty easy to see when there's been success, and I'm grateful that there often is, or I wouldn't be doing this
Right,
more.
right.
But the students get it. They figure out a way
Yeah.
to how to study.
Yeah.
And often with students, what we discover is that students waste a lot of time not studying.
Yeah.
So they think, I've been doing this for 2.5 hours, I'm so frustrated, and I'm still not doing well in school. Okay, well, let's take a look at that 2.5 hours, because if it's 2.5 hours kind of in and out and
Yeah,
IMing
getting up,
and
getting
getting
something to
up
eat,
and just sort of,
Yeah.
they know they just don't want to do it because they don't feel good doing it.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been successful. We turn that around so that we respect that the kids need their private time, their fun time.
And downtime, yeah.
And downtime. And so I try to help them see that we could probably do more with less time if you just, take these.
Focus, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm saying that, am I putting words in your mouth? But if they're getting off and distracted. Well,
Right.
well, tell us, just characterize kind of in a nutshell, what's been one of your greatest successes? Do you have like a little case study you could give us?
Sure. I had a student, a girl in high school, and she came in angry and didn't want to be there, and the dad was sort of, kind of half apologizing that she was practically hostile.
Wow.
And to the idea
Yeah.
of it, that school wasn't going well.
Yeah.
And within a couple of sessions, I saw that this was a very bright young woman and full of really interesting ideas and just so frustrated.
Yeah.
She had certain ideas of how school should be done and what they should be learning in class, and that because she was curious about most things that weren't being addressed in school. For instance, she had an interest in Latin American history and
Wow.
African history.
Yeah.
And it came out that she said, why are we always learning about George Washington? I've learned that like 5
Enough about
times
George
already."
Washington.
Right? So, and I think when she expressed those things in school, it was just seen as hostility and
Yeah.
resistance.
Yeah, get with the program,
Get with the
right?
program. And so she was ready to lower the shades and just say, I'm done. And so we took the time to pursue some of the things that she was interested in. And she, did some writing about that, and we looked at the writing because she was interested now. And that became the thread by which everything turned around. And I would say she was even happier, you know, after some tutoring.
Wow.
And that wasn't a unique situation either.
So you find that a lot?
Yeah. You know?
Well, I mean, it's hard to teach somebody who isn't interested and, as you said, maybe hostile or
Right.
angry, so it sounds
Yeah.
like you must have done something very early on to get her in dialogue with you. Right, because otherwise, if she's, you know,
no, she was.
you don't even engage. I mean, how can you go anywhere?
I was in the bad category during
Yeah.
the first bit of tutoring, but
So you have
I
some
didn't.
scars, some battle wounds. Is that?
I not really. Yeah, not really. I was so happy to, you know, just engage her, and I knew just from the first 10 minutes of meeting her that there was a lot there.
Wow.
And yeah.
So we've got about another minute. Can
Yeah.
you just tell us what your vision ultimately is for your work and where you want to head with all of this? I mean, it's clear your enthusiasm comes across.
Thank you.
know, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about continuing to work with the students and each student to try to
Yeah.
help those students succeed. But on the business side, I think it's really exciting to enter this new realm of online learning and do live webcam tutoring and online conference-based tutoring. It's a really interesting model, and it's been shown to work very effectively.
So now you're tutoring students not just locally, face-to-face, but online, so they could be anywhere.
Right. Or they could be, you know, down the block, but because of convenience, it makes more sense to just stay at home and spend that hour rather than taking the extra time.
So if somebody wanted to find out more information, where would they go? What's your website?
The website is authenticlearninggroup.com, and that's
Okay.
one string.
AuthenticLearningGroup.com.
Right.
Great. Thank you for being on the show,
Thank you,
Michael.
Susan. Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Thank you for joining us.